All right, hi folks. In our previous lesson, we were talking about shapes and how shapes have been used throughout different pieces of art throughout history. And we ended on an artist named M.C. Escher. And I showed you guys one of his famous works. It's a tessellation, which is what we're going to be practicing today. And I really loved the way that M.C. Escher uh, changed the images that you can see in the examples. You can see that they often change from one. We looked at the example with the bird that changes slowly into the fish. You can see that example on the remote learning page on Unified Classroom, as well as a very important video that I'm basically going to do the tutorial today. I showed that image during class yesterday, so if you have not, definitely check it out. It's called Tessellation Lizard Value. This person has a specific way of creating tessellations. She also colors in her tessellation using the skill that we practiced in our last project, which was value. You do not have to do that though. If you scroll down the page, you're going to see that I have another tessellation decoration idea, and you can see in the screen cap that there is a fish tessellation where it's decorated in one way as a fish, and then the other way it's just lines. It's very important to make sure that you're alternating almost like a checkerboard. If you want to up your game and you want to try the different version that I have, if you scroll a little bit further down, you'll see that there is a tessellation rotation. And that one is just a slight twist on what we do, what we will do today. And if you really think that you want a challenge, I have two down here. One is the Tessellation Lizard. The other is the Flying Horse. There are many cuts on this. One actually, the lizard starts with a hexagon shape. We're going to start with a square. I would advise that if you are going to do this, though, I would pause it as the cuts are made and follow along in that way. At the very, very bottom, if you only have something that you can draw on and a straight edge, I have something, a demonstration on how to do tessellation cubes. Again, I would pause it while this person is going along. But these cubes are created, it's a 3D effect, and you can actually see them displayed at the top of the page on the right. I have a cube pattern there, and the way that you color it in or shade it is going to create the cubes. I also have a bunch of different options of tessellations to show how color and pattern, line, and value all play a part in making your tessellation look as cool as you can imagine. All right. So that being said, I'm going to show you with my with the materials that I have here. We're going to do just a step-by-step on how the woman in the video that we watched did hers. So this one is going to use scissors and tape. If you do not have those items, then I will put in the description the exact time that shows how to do this without using scissors and tape. A ballpoint pen is really going to be helpful. So I'm going to take my small piece of paper and I'm going to move my big piece of paper and my tape for the time. Okay, I want to start with a square. So I'm going to fold my paper as straight as I can. Now, if you've ever worked with origami and you need to start with a square, one of the things that I always do is I fold my paper down to create a right triangle. All right. And that tells me that at the bottom of this line, when I unfold my triangle, that's going to be where my the bottom of my square will be. So I can just cut right there. I like to do folds before I cut because it helps my eye see and get a more accurate cut. So I'm going to unfold this, and then I just have to cut off the excess that I've already folded before. Now, it's really helpful to use cardboard, especially like a cereal box or a pasta box. Those tend to be a little bit more sturdy in creating our stencil, but as you can see, a regular piece of paper is going to be fine. And again, it doesn't have to be a perfect square. You want to get it as close to it as possible. The cuts that we're going to make are going to help our tessellation fit together like puzzle pieces. That's a key part. It's a key important piece of the tessellations. So one of the things that I am going to do is I'm going to draw a line design. I'm drawing in pen right now just so that it shows up a little bit better on camera, but I will also pull it up closer to the camera. It's important to draw a line that you can cut on with ease, and so that you can get this piece cut out in one piece. So I did mine from one corner to the next on the bottom, so I'm cutting out one side, and that makes this next step a little bit easier. Remember, you're just fitting it right back in, and you're just going to slide it forward, and it taking up the entire side makes it fit together much easier. This is where I'm going to tape it, and you're just going to remember that you're not going to overlap it. You're just going to kind of put it right next to it. And if yours does what mine just did right now, kind of overlap just a little bit, you can fold it, that's fine, or you can cut it. The next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to cut a smaller shape to show you how important it is to get it lined up so that it fits together as a puzzle piece. So I have a little triangle here. I tried to put a little curve on it. And you don't necessarily have to do it in one cut. You really just have to make sure that you're getting it in one piece. And there we go. Now, one of the things that I like to do is I like to really pay attention to the space between here and the edge, as well as the space between this edge and this edge. All right, because when I slide it up, sometimes it's not as easy to see, but if I can see that there's roughly the same amount of space from top to bottom, then I know that when I'm doing my tessellation, it will fit a little bit better. So I'm going to hold this down. I'm going to make sure that I tape it in place. Just so. Any tape will do. I'm using Scotch tape, but really, as long as it's going to stick your paper together, you'll be in a good spot. Okay. All right, I'll fold over my excess tape so that I can more easily trace. And that's pretty much it. I'm done with my scissors. I'm done with my tape. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece, and the best thing that you can do, you can start pretty much anywhere and kind of move it around. That's going to be fine. But if this is your first time doing this, it might be a little bit easier to just put your tessellation right at the very bottom and just kind of line it up there. So I have mine right here. And I'll pull that up a little bit closer so that you can see it. Okay. And this is where your cardboard comes in handy. If you had used cardboard, it's a little bit more sturdy as a stencil, but it's completely doable with paper, as you can see. I'm doing mine in pen right now just so that it shows up on camera a little bit easier, but I would definitely recommend doing it in pencil in case you make a mistake. But if you do make a mistake and you don't have a pencil, or maybe it's like so dark, like I just made a little tiny mess up there, that's going to be fine, because remember, we're also going to put patterns and color on these. So even if there is a tiny mistake, like say right down here, I made one, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move it. I want to make sure that my tessellation, my stencil fits together perfectly as a puzzle. And that's why it's so important to make sure that when we are taping it in place, that we're going directly across. Now, should you find that it's a little bit off when you're trying to make it fit together, then you can just alter it. That's going to be fine. So you're going to continue tracing these and fitting them together. I have done that on the back of my paper, just like our other examples showed, okay? But this is where you need to be by the end of the day on Friday, okay? You want to have your shapes completely traced all over. And then you can start thinking about how you're going to fill them in. I have a couple of examples for you here that I can show you. Here's a beginning one where I used gradation and value, right? It's a little bit darker on these ends. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with my white areas, but I'm definitely going to fill those in. I might fill them in with color. I might fill them in with line designs. And I'm going to show you, I have another one a little bit smaller that I did this with a little house shape. And I can show you right here, this was the shape that I used. I pretty much just had somewhat of a triangle, took a scrap piece of paper, I had a square, and I just folded it down almost like I was gonna make a paper airplane. And I used that as a stencil. And I was able to I started here and I traced them to create that. Now with this shape, I couldn't just go right back into making it. I could have, actually, that would have made a different shape. But what I did was I flipped it over and made a different shape. Okay, that's still tessellated. It's still a pattern, and it's although this is a smaller piece of paper for example purposes, I wanted to show you guys that that was also an option if you don't have scissors and tape. Okay, and you can see now the cool thing that I did here was when I flipped it over, I saw an arrow. So I made every other row a house, which I added line design. So you can definitely get points in that respect by adding a lot of detail. And then by creating a downward arrow kind of look on the other end by just filling in and shading this, okay? So that's what you can do if you only have a pencil and paper. I'm also gonna show you another technique that you can use using a small piece of paper. All right, so let's say that I have this small piece of paper and I would like to make a tessellation. If you have a pen, this is the way to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that square. So I'm going to fold this over. And I make sure that I have a really sharp crease. I might do this a couple of times. Okay. This is good for straight cuts. Okay. What I tend to do is sometimes I will take like if you have a glass of water, you can wet this, or you can do what I do, which is, you know, not the greatest solution, but I'll usually just lick it. It's my own work, so kind of gross, but it works. And then what happens is it just comes together. It comes apart pretty easily at that. If you have a really, really strong crease, sometimes that'll work as well, but getting it, adding a little bit of moisture there will definitely help it out. I'm gonna fold this over so that I can get my square. Now, when I did the house one, I pretty much started with a square and made a fold. I'm gonna show you, if you just don't wanna make a fold, another version. So I'm again making that really good crease, and I'll show you what sometimes it works if you don't use any moisture. Okay, had a little bit of an issue there, but that shouldn't be an issue. That shouldn't be too bad. So now I have my square. I'm going to show you a way to do this. Again, you want to have it in one piece. So usually what I do is I take my ballpoint pen. Let's just say I'm going to go from corner to corner, and I'll make like a little wave motion. Okay. What I'm going to attempt to do, since it's not straight, it's not something that I can do by just folding, I'm going to go over this a couple of times with my pen. I'm going to make it much darker. And I'm actually going to put, sometimes it helps to put a little piece of paper underneath it. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing this, and I'm going to make it about maybe three or four passes, just pressing harder as I go. Okay, and as you can see, I'm actually like denting the paper a little bit. I don't know how well that's going to show up, but if I flip this over, you can actually see it's starting to show through. So I'm going to do the same thing, pressing hard, doing this about 3 or 4 times. And what that does is it weakens the paper. It's almost like when I said to like lick the crease on our fold, how that helped to make a cleaner cut. You can see actually that I have weakened the paper so much that my pen has gone through. That tells me that this paper is weak enough that if I want to start ripping it, it's going to rip exactly where I want to. And the places that I want it to rip are on this line. And as you can see, I'm not even really pulling too hard. It's just coming apart quite easily. So that's one way that you can make a stencil without having anything around you that can make a cut like a scissor, okay? And we don't need the tape for this one, because what we will do is we will start again at the very bottom, and we will simply trace it, okay? Now for this one, you're going to continue to trace it. You want to make sure that you get all of the sides though, okay? And you're going to keep going. So I've got this side here. All right, I'm not going to do this whole page because we've already gone over what your tessellation should look like at the training, but at the earlier video, at the earlier example. But I am just going to show you how you can do the next level. You just want to make sure that you're tracing the entire stencil so that it almost creates this like grid, this grid pattern for yours, okay? And with this version, you fill your entire page, and once again, you can take a look on Unified Classroom. Okay, you can see my examples. You can take a look on Unified Classroom for ways that you can shade or color yours, and I wish you the best of luck. I will also say that that there is a written option for this, so if you feel that you do not have the materials, or that this is a little bit above what you are capable of doing, then you can definitely do a written assignment. That is also on Unified Classroom. Good luck.